Ellie stood near the cake table in her little blue dress, holding a small box tight in both hands. Her voice cut through the hum of conversation like a knife. "Dad said to give you this if you ever acted like I wasn't his kid again." The room went dead silent. Forks stopped midair. Even the guy from the VFW pouring beers paused, his hand frozen on the tap. Rick, my father-in-law, the guest of honor, the man of the hour, let out this awkward chuckle like he thought maybe it was all a joke. He held out his hand. "All right, let's see it then." Ellie walked over and set the box right in front of him on the tablecloth. She didn't say another word, didn't even blink. Rick opened the lid. Inside was a framed photo and a sealed envelope. I didn't move. I didn't need to see what was inside. I already knew. Rick pulled out the photo first. It was Carly, my wife, holding Ellie in front of the courthouse the day the adoption finalized. Ellie was 5, missing a front tooth, clutching a teddy bear. Carly had tears in her eyes. Then he opened the envelope. The silence stretched so thin I could hear someone crunching ice across the room. Rick read fast. His lips moved, but no words came out. Then suddenly he shot up from his chair so hard it scraped against the tile. The letter slipped from his hand, landed face up on the floor. Someone gasped. He slammed the box shut. "You think this is funny?" he barked, red climbing up his neck. People flinched. A couple kids started crying. One of Carly's uncles tried to peek at the letter, but I stepped in and picked it up before he could. Rick was still ranting, something about disrespect and being blindsided. But I wasn't listening anymore. I looked over at Ellie. She'd already sat back down beside me, legs crossed, hands in her lap. Calm. Like she'd done exactly what she came to do. Let me tell you how we got here. I met Carly in Lincoln, Nebraska. We were both working the night shift, me at a parts warehouse, her in the ER registration desk. She had this dry sense of humor that caught me off guard every time. We weren't supposed to be serious, but one weekend turned into every weekend, and next thing I knew, I was meeting her family. They lived about an hour away in a town called Fairbury, small, tight-knit, where everybody knew everybody and most of them were related. Carly's dad, Rick, ran the local body shop, and not just as a boss. He was the place. Big guy, loud laugh, always smelled like motor oil and chewing tobacco. People respected him. The kind of man who could fix your truck, shake your hand, and tell you why the mayor was an idiot, all in the same conversation. At first, he was fine with me. Not warm, but polite enough. Called me Bud, offered me beer, even invited me to help him change the oil in his '89 Ford the second time I came by. I remember thinking, all right, we're good. Back then, I wanted so badly to be part of it all. The Sunday cookouts, the garage jokes, the inside stories about neighbors I didn't even know yet. Carly's mom had passed years before, so it was just Rick, Carly, her younger sister Jenny, and a swarm of cousins that all orbited around Rick like he was the sun. But little things started happening. Carly would mention a family BBQ I hadn't heard about. "Oh, it was just casual," she'd say. Jenny must have forgot to send the text. Then there were game nights at her aunt's house. I'd see photos on Facebook later. Everyone playing cornhole in the yard, wearing matching t-shirts from some family vacation I hadn't been invited to. I tried not to make it a big deal, told myself I was new, that it takes time, but it kept happening, and then came the comments. One night, Rick and I were watching a Nebraska game on his back porch. Out of nowhere, he says, "You know, Carly's mom always pictured her with a doctor or a teacher, someone a little more polished." He didn't look at me when he said it, just sipped his beer and kept his eyes on the screen. I laughed, trying to play it off. "Guess I ruined that dream, huh?" He shrugged. "It is what it is." Stuff like that kept coming, always subtle, never full-blown insults, just offhand remarks that made me question if I was imagining it. "You ever think Carly's settling down too fast? Some guys just don't fit into this kind of family. I just hope she knows what she's doing." Carly didn't see it, or maybe she didn't want to. She told me Rick had always been that way, blunt, no filter, said it didn't mean anything, but it meant something to me. I kept showing up, kept shaking hands, kept pretending I didn't notice when I got left out of group texts or handed the paper plate without silverware. I told myself if I worked hard enough, if I stuck around long enough, he'd come around. Thing is, Rick never threw a punch. He never yelled. That would have been easy to fight. Instead, he chipped away at you. Slow and quiet. So slow you almost didn't feel it, until one day you woke up wondering why you never quite felt like part of the circle. I wasn't just marrying Carly. I was marrying into a family that had already decided exactly who belonged and who didn't. Ellie was already part of the package when Carly came into my life. She was 3 when we met, curly brown hair, bright eyes. She used to fall asleep holding my thumb like it was her security blanket. I never hit her. I never softened the truth. I told Carly straight up, "I've got a daughter. She comes first." Carly didn't blink. She leaned in, hard, started coming to park days and dentist appointments like it was second nature. She was all in from day one. When we got married, it wasn't even a question. Carly adopted Ellie legally. We did the paperwork, went to court, and made it official. From that day forward, we never said step, not once. She was mom, period, but Rick never followed suit. He played nice at first, bought Ellie a doll for her birthday that first year, a coloring book at Christmas, said things like, "Hey there, kiddo," and "You hungry?" like he was trying. But it always felt rehearsed. Just enough effort to look good in front of people, but never enough to fool anyone paying attention. Ellie might have been young, but she noticed. There was this one family lake trip. Everyone wore matching red shirts that said Rick's Crew Lake House Weekend. The cousins were running around, squirt guns and marshmallows, and Ellie was in her regular clothes. I asked Carly about it, and she said Rick told her they ran out of kid sizes. Bullshit. In every group photo, Ellie somehow ended up off to the side. Not quite cropped out, but not centered either. Her cousins all got bikes one Christmas. Ellie opened a $5 gift card to Dairy Queen. She smiled and said, "Thank you." But she didn't eat her sundae that day. I kept making excuses. I told her, "Grandpa just forgets stuff sometimes, babe," or "He didn't mean anything by it." But I knew exactly what it was. Rick never saw Ellie as one of his. Blood mattered to him. That last name, that resemblance. And no matter what paperwork we had, Ellie didn't match. I started noticing the way he introduced the grandkids to his buddies. "This is Tyler, plays baseball, and that's Kenzie, straight A student." When he got to Ellie, it was always, "That one's with Carly and her husband. Never my granddaughter." One year, Ellie saved up her allowance and bought Rick a mug that said, "Bwawan, Grandpa." She wrapped it herself, tied it with a lopsided bow. He opened it, stared at it for half a second, and said, "Well, that's cute," then put it down and started talking about the game on TV. Carly saw it all. She felt it too, but she kept giving him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he doesn't know how to connect. And she'd say, "He's old school." Old school or not, kids know when they're not wanted. Ellie stopped making cards for him after that. Stopped asking if he'd be at her piano recitals or school open houses. She still called him Grandpa, but the shine was gone from her voice. I kept trying. I'd nudge Rick, say stuff like, "Ellie's really into drawing now," or "She made the honor roll." He'd nod, grunt, maybe toss out a "good for her." But that was it. No follow-up, no effort. You want to believe people will grow. That time makes room for love. But some people just dig their heels in deeper. And Rick, he made it real clear who he thought belonged in that family, and who didn't. And then Rick turned 60, and he decided he needed an audience for it. Carly's aunt rented out the back room of a little steakhouse outside Fairbury. There were balloons in black and silver, a big sheet cake with an airbrushed photo of Rick next to a hot rod, and a long table lined with wrapped gifts. Rick walked in like he owned the building, clapping guys on the back, taking loud compliments like they were tips. All the grandkids were there, matching jerseys laid across their chairs like a planned-out touchdown celebration. Black shirts with white lettering. Rick's team. Each one had a name on the back: Tyler, Kenzie, Landon. Even the toddler had one that said, Bub. Ellie's spot was at the end. No jersey, no name. Just a gray folding chair pulled from somebody's garage, set slightly off the line like they ran out of room for her. It wasn't an accident. It was too clean, too deliberate, like someone wanted to make sure the message landed. Ellie climbed up into that chair and sat on her hands. She didn't ask questions. She didn't make a face. She just looked at the jerseys like they were for a different party. I stared down the table, then looked at Carly. Her jaw tightened so hard a muscle jumped in her cheek. She kept her eyes on Ellie. All not Rick. Rick started handing out the jerseys like trophies. "There you go, buddy," he said to Tyler. "That one's yours, sweetheart," to Kenzie. Phones were out. Photos were being taken. People laughed and yelled, "Put it on! Put it on!" Nobody handed Ellie anything. I leaned over to Carly and kept my voice low. "Are you seeing this?" Carly didn't answer right away. She stood up, walked to the end of the table, and picked up the extra jersey stack like she expected one to be hiding under it. Nothing. She looked around like maybe someone had set Ellie's aside. Still nothing. Rick noticed her standing there and called out, "Hey Carl, bring those down here." Carly set the stack back down and went straight to Rick. I followed because I wasn't about to let her walk into that alone. She kept her voice steady, but it had an edge. "Where's Ellie's jersey?" Rick blinked like she'd asked him the Wi-Fi password. "What?" "Ellie's jersey. Everyone else has one." Rick gave a quick laugh, like it was all so silly. "Oh, come on, it's just shirts." Carly didn't flinch. "Then why does every kid have one except her?" He shrugged, eyes sliding away. "We didn't think. We ran out. It's not a big deal." I felt my hands curl into fists at my sides. "You ran out of one? One?" Rick's smile got tight. "Don't start, all right? Not tonight. Not at my birthday." Carly stared at him, and for the first time, I saw something in her face I hadn't seen before. Not embarrassment, not hope, just pure hurt, sharp and bright. Rick slapped my shoulder like we were buddies. "Go sit down, eat, enjoy yourselves." He turned away, already laughing at something one of his friends said, like Ellie wasn't sitting 10 feet away on a junk chair. We did sit back down, because causing a scene there would have turned Ellie into the headline. Ellie picked at her kid's meal and watched the other kids pose in their jerseys. She didn't look at Rick once. Later that night, after we got home and the house finally went quiet, Ellie padded into the hallway in her socks. She stood in our doorway clutching her stuffed rabbit, eyes wide but dry. She asked it like she already knew the answer. "Is Grandpa mad? I'm not really his?" Carly sat up like she'd been hit. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She just stared at Ellie, and her eyes went glossy. That hurt on Carly's face. God, it was ugly. Like she was realizing how long she'd been letting it happen. I swung my legs out of bed and went to Ellie. "Come here." Ellie didn't move until I reached for her hand. Her fingers were cold. Carly finally found her voice, thin and rough. "Ellie, you are really mine. I chose you." Ellie nodded once, but she didn't look convinced. She looked tired. That was when Carly got up and marched into the kitchen, grabbed her phone, and called Rick. It was late, but she didn't care. I listened from the doorway as she said, "You embarrassed my daughter tonight." Rick's voice crackled through the speaker, irritated. "I didn't mean anything. You're making a thing out of nothing." Carly's hand shook around the phone. "You always don't mean things." Rick huffed. "This isn't how we do things in this family, Carly." She stared at the counter like she could burn a hole through it. "Maybe that's the problem," she said, and ended the call. After Carly carried Ellie back to bed, I went to the printer in my little office and pulled up the adoption certificate. I hit print and watched it roll out slow, like it was taking its time on purpose. Then I wrote a letter, short, direct, no soft language. I folded it, slid it with the certificate and the courthouse photo into a small box we had left from Ellie's old bracelet kit, and taped it shut. When Ellie came back into the living room in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes, I crouched down and held the box out to her. "If he ever makes you feel like that again," I said, "you hand him this." Ellie took the box with both hands and looked at it like it was heavier than it was. She nodded. She didn't cry. She just said, "Okay," and walked it straight to her dresser drawer and shut it. Rick's retirement party was everything he wanted it to be. Loud, packed, and full of people pretending he was the king of Fairbury. They rented out the VFW hall, strung up red, white, and blue streamers, set out a buffet from the barbecue joint in town, and ran a slideshow of Rick's greatest hits on a projector screen. Him welding, fixing fenders, posing with trophies from local car shows. His old buddies slapped his back like it owed them money. The mayor even showed up for 10 minutes, dropped off a plaque, and got his photo taken. The grandkids had matching shirts again, black this time, with Rick's Pit Crew printed in chrome letters. Of course, Ellie didn't have one. No surprise there. She wore a blue dress she picked out herself, a little fancier than usual, said she wanted to look nice for Grandpa's big day. Carly curled her hair. I tied her shoes. She walked into that VFW like she still believed there was something left to fix. She was holding a hand-painted wooden plaque, shaped like a car hood, that said, "Best Grandpa" in gold paint. She worked on it all week in the garage, even got some grease smudged into the corners for authenticity. Rick was working the room, loud as ever, hugging his real grandkids, dragging them into photos with him in front of the custom backdrop Carly's aunt had made. He held up one of the toddlers and yelled, "Now, this one's the future of the family shop." Ellie stood off to the side, plaque clutched tight in both hands. When Rick finally noticed her, she stepped up and offered it with both arms stretched out. "This is for you," she said, voice quiet but steady. Rick glanced at it, muttered, "Thanks," and set it on the folding chair behind him without even reading it. Then he called over Landon, the oldest grandson, and handed him a glass case with a signed football from Rick's college team. Told the whole room, "This kid's gonna carry the legacy." Ellie stood there a second longer, her arms still hanging in the air like she didn't know what to do with them. Then she turned and walked back to me. She sat down beside me, quiet. Not crying, just shut off. No sparkle in her face, no bounce in her shoulders, just still. Carly leaned over and fixed a loose piece of hair behind Ellie's ear. Ellie didn't even flinch. People around us were laughing, clinking soda bottles, throwing their heads back at some story Rick was telling. Nobody noticed her go dim. Nobody except us. Ellie reached down and opened her little purse. I didn't say anything. I just watched. She unzipped the side pocket and peeked inside, like she was checking to make sure it was still there. That small box, the one we'd sealed up that night. Her fingers brushed the top of it, and then she closed the purse again and put it on her lap. She didn't look at me, didn't say a word. She just stared straight ahead, waiting. And I knew. It was only a matter of time. The cake came out around 7. Big chocolate sheet cake with "Happy Retirement, Rick," piped in thick white frosting. Everyone gathered near the front of the room for speeches, holding plates and plastic forks, sugar buzz setting in. Rick stood in the middle like a proud general, soaking it all up. He gave this loud, half-drunken speech full of jokes that landed harder than he probably meant them to. "Look at this crew," he said, motioning to the grandkids lined up in their matching shirts. "These are my boys, my real blood, right here." People laughed. He winked at one of the uncles. "Can't fake genes, huh?" Carly's hand closed around my arm so fast I didn't even see her move. "She brought the box," she whispered. I looked down at Ellie. She hadn't touched her cake. Her fork sat sideways on the plate. She was watching Rick like she was waiting for a cue. I nodded once. I didn't stop her. After the final toast, someone raising a plastic cup and shouting, "To Rick!" Ellie stood up. She walked with both hands on her little purse, chin high, shoulders back. She didn't ask for attention. She didn't raise her voice. She walked straight to Rick's table, stopped just a foot away from him, and said clear as day, "Dad said to give you this if you ever acted like I wasn't his kid again." The room froze. Forks paused mid-bite. Someone laughed awkwardly, like maybe it was a bit, maybe there was a punchline coming. But Ellie didn't smile. She opened her purse, pulled out the small box, and set it down in front of him on the tablecloth. Then she turned and walked right back to her seat. Calm, quiet, like it was done. Rick stared at the box like it might explode. He glanced at Carly, then at me, then at Ellie. Nobody said a word. Finally, he opened it. First thing he saw was the framed photo. Carly holding Ellie outside the courthouse. Adoption day. Carly's hair was windblown. Ellie was missing a tooth and holding that ratty teddy bear she used to drag everywhere. Rick picked it up like it was a foreign object. Then he pulled out the certificate, read the top line, and finally the folded letter tucked behind it. He read silently. His smile dropped like a curtain. Then, low but sharp, he muttered, "What the hell is this?" Someone from another table leaned over to peek. Rick didn't let them. He slapped the box lid halfway closed, still holding the letter in one hand like it burned him. "Is this supposed to be some kind of message?" he barked. Nobody answered. He looked straight at Carly, eyes narrowing. "You gave her this?" Carly didn't blink. "No." She brought it. Rick stood up, chest puffed out. "This is how you handle things now? Embarrass me in front of the whole damn town?" I stayed quiet, letting the moment stretch. Ellie sat next to me, hands folded in her lap, staring down at her plate like she hadn't just cracked the entire room open. Rick held up the certificate like it was a threat. "You think this piece of paper means something to me?" He was gearing up. You could see it, shoulders squared, jaw tight, ready to unload. But Carly didn't back down, and Ellie didn't look up. The VFW hall, with all its red, white, and blue streamers, suddenly felt too small for what had just happened. Rick didn't get it yet, but the rest of us did. And we weren't done. Rick's eyes flicked across the room like he wanted backup. He didn't get any. People just stared at him, at the box, at Carly, like they had all been dropped into the middle of a fight they didn't sign up for. He looked back down at the letter and shook it once, hard. "So you wrote me a letter now?" he snapped, voice rising. "You couldn't just talk to me like a normal person?" Carly's face stayed calm, but her hands were tight at her sides. Ellie sat so still, she could have been carved out of stone. Rick cleared his throat and unfolded the page like he was about to read somebody's criminal record. Then he started reading out loud, angry, punching the words. "If you're reading this, you've reminded my daughter again that she's not yours," he read. His voice cracked on, "my daughter." Like the phrase offended him. A chair scraped somewhere behind us. Nobody spoke. Rick kept going, louder now, like volume could erase the meaning. "But she is mine. I adopted her with love, with promise, and by choice. If you can't accept her, then you don't accept me." The room went dead silent, not polite silent, not "we're listening" silent. The kind of silence where you can hear the air conditioner kicking on, the buzz of the lights, someone's cup trembling against a plate. Rick's face turned a deep, ugly red. He looked up like he expected the room to laugh with him. They didn't. He slammed the letter down on the table. Then he slammed the box shut with both hands, hard enough that the sound echoed off the VFW walls. "This is garbage," he spat. He pointed at me like I'd planted a bomb. This is you getting in her head." I stood up slow, keeping my voice steady. "Don't put this on me." Rick cut me off, stabbing the air with his finger. "You've been playing games since day one, always trying to force your way into my family." He turned to Carly. "And you let him? You let him twist you around until you're writing letters like some damn therapist." Carly didn't raise her voice. That was what made it worse for him. "You did this, Dad." Rick laughed, sharp and fake. "No, sweetheart. This isn't how we do things in this family. We don't air dirty laundry in public. We don't humiliate people at their own party." Carly took one step forward. Her posture was straight, shoulders back, like she'd finally decided to stop shrinking. "Maybe it's time to do things differently," she said. That hit him like a slap. His eyes widened, then narrowed. "Different? Different because he told you to?" He jabbed his thumb at me again. "Because your husband decided he runs the show now?" I felt my chest tighten, anger crawling up my throat. I wanted to unload on him. Years of swallowed words. Years of watching Ellie get edged out. Years of Carly pretending her dad didn't mean it. But Carly moved before I could. Rick leaned in, voice dripping with accusation. "He turned you against me. That's what this is. He got you thinking you're too good for your own blood." Carly looked at him for a long beat, then shifted her body toward Ellie. She stepped back to our table, put herself between Rick and our daughter, and laid a hand on Ellie's shoulder. Ellie flinched at first, like she wasn't used to being protected this openly. Then she leaned into Carly just a little. Carly's voice stayed calm, but it carried across the entire hall. "No," she said. "I chose this." Rick blinked like he didn't understand English anymore. "You chose—" He shook his head, disgusted. "You're gonna throw your own father away over this?" Carly didn't budge. "You threw us away every time you made her feel less than." Rick's mouth opened, then closed. He looked around again, desperate for someone to jump in. An aunt stared at her shoes. A cousin pretended to check his phone. Rick's buddies suddenly found the far wall interesting. Nobody saved him. I reached down, picked up the box, and tucked it under my arm. Carly took Ellie's hand. Ellie stood up without a word, her face blank, but her grip tight. Rick's voice got loud again, panicked now. "You walk out that door and don't come crawling back." Carly didn't answer him. She just guided Ellie around the table. I walked with them, straight toward the exit. The room parted like we were carrying something dangerous. People watched, wide-eyed, but nobody stopped us. Nobody asked Carly to sit back down. Nobody told Rick to calm down. We hit the double doors, and I pushed them open. Cold night air rushed in. And we walked out. What would you have done? Stayed quiet to keep peace, or walked out like we did? Comment your answer and subscribe for more stories. We didn't say much in the car. Ellie sat in the back, staring out the window, legs swinging slow, quiet. Carly kept both hands on the wheel, eyes locked forward. I held the box on my lap the whole way home. That night, we ordered takeout and ate on the living room floor with a movie playing in the background that none of us really watched. Nobody said Rick's name. A week passed. Nothing. No call, no text. Not even a passive-aggressive Facebook post. Just silence. Carly's sister Jenny sent her a text late one night. "He's sulking. You know how he is." Carly didn't answer. Ellie didn't ask about him once. She didn't say his name. She didn't even mention the party. What she did do was start baking. I came home from work one afternoon, and the whole kitchen smelled like vanilla. Carly and Ellie were elbow-deep in flour, laughing over a batch of crooked chocolate chip cookies. There was music playing, something old, upbeat, and Carly had powdered sugar in her hair. They'd moved on, and they didn't need permission to do it. That weekend, we packed up the truck and went camping, just the three of us. We didn't go far, just a little state park north of town, with a couple good trails and a pond full of frogs. Ellie brought her sketchbook. Carly brought her big thermos of coffee and a folding chair. I handled the firewood and tried not to burn dinner. We sat around the fire on night 2, wrapped in blankets, and watched the stars come out. Ellie roasted a marshmallow so long it caught fire, and she didn't even flinch, just blew it out and popped it in her mouth like a boss. Carly leaned over to me, voice low, eyes on the flames. "I think this is the first time I've stopped trying to earn something." I didn't answer. I just reached for her hand and held it. Ellie was lying on her back in the grass, pointing out constellations she made up herself. "That one's a dog with a crown," she said, "and that one looks like a taco." We laughed. We let her name the sky. When we got home Sunday night, Ellie unpacked her own bag and went straight to bed without asking for a bedtime story. She kissed Carly on the cheek, gave me a high five, and shut her door behind her. I went into her room a little later to check on her, and saw the purse she'd brought to the party tucked into the corner of her closet. The box was gone. She never mentioned it again. I didn't throw it out. I kept it. It's in my dresser drawer now, under the socks I never wear, right next to her first baseball glove and that crayon drawing she made when she was 6, the one with the crooked house, the giant sun, and all 3 of us standing in front of it, holding hands. That box doesn't carry anger anymore. It carries proof. Proof she stood up. Proof we stood behind her. The package showed up in the mailbox on a Tuesday afternoon. Small yellow envelope, handwritten, addressed to Ellie. No return address, just a smiley face sticker on the corner. Carly handed it to her at the kitchen table. Ellie turned it over in her hands like it might be something serious, something official. Then she tore it open with her thumbs and pulled out a bracelet, woven thread, pink and green, and a little folded note. I saw her eyes move across the words, slow at first, then again faster. She didn't say anything for a second, then she read it out loud, soft. "I'm sorry Grandpa was rude. I love you." It was signed with a heart and her cousin's name, Kenzie. Carly sat down next to her, trying to hide the emotion in her face. Ellie didn't say much, just slipped the bracelet onto her wrist and started tying the knot with steady fingers. She pulled it tight like it meant something more than decoration. Like armor. She wore that thing every day after that. Didn't matter if it clashed or if we were going somewhere nice. It was always on. I watched her walk into school with it, sit at the counter doing math homework with it, fall asleep with it still on her wrist. She wasn't waiting for Rick anymore, wasn't hoping for a call, wasn't checking the driveway to see if someone changed their mind. That bracelet told me what I needed to know. She'd found her side. So, we made one of our own. Carly and I started Sunday dinners a couple of weeks later. Nothing formal, just a standing invite. No group text, no expectations. We grilled burgers, made too much pasta, pulled folding chairs into the backyard, and told people, if you want to come hungry. And people showed up. Not everyone from her family, but enough. Jenny came by with potato salad. Kenzie and her little brother rolled in with board games. A couple friends from work brought dessert and beer. One of Ellie's classmates from school came once and stayed for hours. No tension, no weird glances, no real and not real. Just plates passed down the table, bad jokes. Kids running barefoot in the grass. It wasn't perfect. We still overcooked the chicken sometimes. The screen door still squeaked. We didn't pray before dinner or take group photos. But it felt real. No one had to earn their spot. No one got cut out of the picture. Ellie laughed louder on those nights. She'd sit between Carly and me, shoving chips in her mouth, telling stories about school, holding her plate with both hands like she didn't want to miss a second. Carly looked lighter too. Not the kind of light that comes from escaping something, but the kind that comes from choosing what stays. We didn't build the family we started with. We built the one that showed up. Ellie was on the living room rug with a stack of colored pencils, barefoot in pajama pants, tongue poking out the corner of her mouth while she drew. I sat behind her on the couch, half watching the news with the volume low. She was sketching from memory, trees, a tent, the little camp stove we nearly set on fire. Every page looked like a moment from our trip. She held one up, proud. It showed the three of us by the fire, marshmallows on sticks, stars overhead. Her signature was in the bottom corner in block letters. "Can we send this one to Aunt Jenny?" she asked, not looking up. Not Rick, not Grandpa. Aunt Jenny. "Yeah," I said. "She'd love that." I felt the shift then. Not a big moment, just a small, solid click. Like something that had been loose for a long time finally locked into place. Ellie didn't ask for anyone's approval anymore. Later that night, Carly came in while I was folding laundry. She sat on the edge of the bed, quiet, holding one of Ellie's socks in her lap, like she forgot what to do with it. "It shouldn't have taken that much," she said, "for him to see her." I looked up. "He did see her." She blinked. "What?" "He saw her," I said again. "That's why he screamed." Carly let out this sharp breath, part laugh, part sigh, and nodded. That was the whole truth right there. He saw her, all of her, and still decided she wasn't enough. But we were done chasing him. We didn't go back to Rick's house. There weren't any follow-up calls or half-hearted invites. No big blow-up, no reconciliation, just nothing. Which was fine, clean even. Ellie didn't bring him up, didn't ask why he hadn't reached out or if he missed her. She had other things to think about, art projects, science tests, which dessert to bake next Sunday. She wasn't waiting at the window anymore, and she wasn't missing anything. The box stayed in my drawer. I saw it sometimes when I was grabbing socks, tucked right next to the glove she used in T-ball and that crayon drawing from years ago. Us in front of our house, holding hands. We didn't keep it for anger. We kept it as proof she stood up, and that we stood right behind her.